Hello viewers and welcome to the morning program from the Dailies on Echo Television Africa, where we look at various stories making the headlines from our Nigerian newspaper. I am Sele Elisha Dasham and with me is Owolabi Tosin.
Good morning, Sele.
Morning, Tosin. How you doing?
I'm good.
You look glorious this
Thank
morning.
you. You look good too.
Thank you, dear. Okay, let's run through the papers we have this morning, and I'll be starting with the Nigerian News Direct. And the first story here, ASU strike, Senate will bring back federal government and ASU to negotiation table. This is coming from the Senate President Lawan. And I know yesterday we said that we need a presidential intervention when it comes to the ASU. Looking at the fact that they have increased 3 months, another 3 months again to go on strike. So we just hope that within this 3 months, we are even hoping, not even up to the moon, that they'll be able to sit down since they have called them to a negotiation table. Let them hear what ASU want. I mean, it has been going back and forth. So our one desire is that the students will be back in their classroom. I mean, with that, we'll be able to, watch out for insecurity, hoodlums here and there. So I just look at it. Actually shows that the protests that the students have been going have actually paid off at the end of the day. So our own desire is that when they get back to the classes, we know that everything is now back to normal.
Yes, these are things we want to be seen on our papers, like stories that are assuring people that the future will be bright. Because when you talk about the educational sector, it is the bedrock of the society, and the bedrock of society should not be left, it should not be exempted in progress and even in growth. So coming from the Senate President on how federal government and the ASU will come to a negotiation table, I just hopeful that it will happen very soon, because talk is cheap. We can see things like this coming, but there are no steps being taken on how they can come to a lasting solution on the ongoing strike. But we're just hopeful that the strike will end very soon so that students can go back to school.
Of course, Tosin. Other stories still trending on the paper. Insurance policy. IGP restates commitment to better the welfare of the police officers. And I know this has been a story that has been very dear to your heart. And even I remember we have a caller that always called emphasizing on the fact that the welfare of the police have to be taken paramount, because you see, when they are not taken care of, it's easy for them to receive bribes. It's easy for them to even be used as snitches when it comes to issues of insecurity. So for them, the insurance policy to actually look into the better welfare of the police officer, I'm really happy. Just like you said, talk is cheap. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing for us to see it being actualized. Remember, before March 26 APC convention, they were said that they were going to look into their welfare. I think on one of our people we saw they're being shared uniforms and other things. There's still much more. We are even looking at the pension scheme that they should belong to. We should look into something, because if you look at some of our retired security personnel, it's a thing of pity. You really pity them, because they're looking very haggard, very tattered, as if they've never served their fatherland before. So I'm really happy that they are going to look into this. We should restate it, we should emphasize on it, and we really want to see that our police officers and even the security agents entirely are being taken care of.
Yes, even the civil servants entirely, because we've seen civil servants after retirement, they have nothing to show forth that they worked for the country. And we see that after retirement, you see, they have to protest before they can get their retirement benefits. We had a caller who called and said because of the shock the father got, it's caused his sudden death, because you've planned that amount of money will be paid to you after retirement, and later on it's being cut, like slashed, and what you are saying is not what you can work with and what you've planned to work with. So we need to look out for ways the government can reinstate pension of retirees, our aged parents. They need something that will help them. They've worked for it, they've saved for it. It's not a free money, seller. They saved for it, so it should come the right time it's supposed to come. And this money, we don't need our old-aged parents to come out, protest on the street before they can receive their pension. The federal government should reinstate it, and the police also should reinstate it, because people are fighting for the security of the country, lives and properties. Even when they go out to war fronts, it's either they come alive or they come dead. So you see that these things need to be done. They need to reinstate their welfare. You see, like, look at the police headquarters. You see where they are staying. You can see how dilapidated it is. Their housing scheme dilapidated. You see that their welfare is not even looked into. And when people are working, you should look into their welfare, because that gives them the assurance and even the backing that, yes, I am fighting for my fatherland and my fatherland have me in heart. These have a positive way of giving them the zeal to give out their best to the fighting of insecurity in our country and give out their best for the growth of our country. So not just the police, but even the civil servants and whoever is working, wherever you are working, the welfare of your staff should be paramount.
Of course, Tosin. Other stories still on the Nigerian News Direct. May 29 handover date is sacrosanct. This is coming from the federal government. And the big story here, 500 billion naira transportation claims. Fuel scarcity looms nationwide as marketers threaten to shut down operations. The rider following that say parties must have roundtable discussion to avert the artificial scarcity. Detail of that story can be found on page 3. FRS calls for increased collaboration within African countries to effectively tax digital businesses. Detail of that can be found also on page 13. And we have the Gulf of Guinea, NIMESA, Navy, ICC collaborate on share awareness deconflictation. And we also have picture stories here where we can see the governor of Lagos State and other statesmen do well to get the Nigerian News Direct and read any of the stories that's of interest to you.
And moving to News Telegraph, on diesel, telcos connect to public grid as running cost near 300 billion naira, with the financial commitment up to 8.8 billion naira. Central Bank of Nigeria is saying external reserve fall by $444.13 million in 2 weeks. On 2023, little known nomadic pastoral group says it bought farms for Jonathan as Macban debunks claim. We want debt cancellation, not relief. And this is coming from Bajabia Mila. And it's wrong to charge $2 million for presidential form when GDP is $200,000. This is coming from Shegun Mimiko. On tenure elongation, May 29 handover sacrosanct, presidency replies Clark and Babalola. The big story on party congress and primaries, president, National Assembly members, governors, others to vote as Senate amends Electoral Act, reps to hold plenary on same issue today. Details can be found in page 3 and 7. Sele, you know, we had so many issues on the Electoral Act when even the Senate Act. I know what the Electoral Act has in place for us, that whoever is serving in any parastatal in the federal government, you can't vie for any political position. And now we can see that with the politics coming to play, we see that our Senate president is vying for the position of presidency come 2023. We see the Minister of Transportation, we see the Minister of Labor. They are all vying for key positions. Even Malami is vying for governorship in a state. And we can see that all these things coming to play, and now the Senate and reps has to hold plenary today on how they can amend this Electoral Act. So we can see that something is fishy in all these things, because whenever it has something to do with them, it concerns them, then they look for how they can amend all these things. But looking at this, are you supposed to occupy a position and still vie for same position, another position again, even in the federal government? We had a minister who's a minister in the country, and even a lecturer again in the federal university, and people kicked against it because you can't be collecting like 2 different salaries from the same pocket. Why do we have the TSA, that's the Treasury Single Account? Why do we have such things to kick against things like this? And now we can see people getting this nomination form, ministers getting nomination form, even senators getting the nomination form, and they are still occupying another position in the government. And we are supposed to resign from such position. Like if you're a minister and you want to come out for presidency, then you resign. But we still have our ministers saying they won't resign from such position. And now we can see that the Senate and even the reps are going to meet today on it. So we'll keep our fingers crossed to see that if you are going to resign, or you still occupy same position and still vie for another higher position, then we need to look into this. We keep on saying we want to be like foreign nations, we want to be above foreign nations, but we should learn from the positive things that these foreign nations are doing. They don't put greed and selfishness before their country, because before your country, you should not put greed and selfishness. But we can see that from our politicians, greed and selfishness have become the order of the day. You just want to amass wealth for yourself, and yourself alone. You're not concerned about the common man. You're not concerned about the masses. We hear our Senate just last year and upper year, they're saying that some roads are not plowable for them, some roads are not good for them to move around. But now we see that every day we see that a politician have come to visit in this country, in this state or another state. How has the road been that now you can come to this, even go down to the grassroots level to see those people, because the election is by the corner. So we need to shine our eyes. I keep on saying, shine your eyes. Something is fishy, because you can't just come out, occupy a position, a key position, Sele, and you still vie for another position. Then you should give someone chance. You keep on saying the youths are the leaders of tomorrow, but the youths are not even given the opportunity. You see the nomination form, you see forms, you see the amount of money. Youth are not given that opportunity to even show yes, to even say yes, I have what it takes. But you see that the issue of this money is what is restraining them back, is drawing them back. We need to look into all these things. You can't occupy a position and vie for that same position, all still in the government parastatal. Something needs to be done about it if you are going to shift and vie for that position, because it's just like, okay, I catch one, I hold one. If I didn't get this, and I'm standing with this. We don't need something like that. We need people who are transparent for this election.
Tosi, so just like you said, we'll just keep our fingers crossed. You already, you said out my mind the fact that sometimes it look like when it favors them, they look at how it can be, amended, and if it doesn't favor them, we say they'll kick again. Because it's really a sad one that you use taxpayers' money. This is a public fund. Taxpayers, you still be running, receiving your salary, and use the same money also to run for the election. Just like you said, we just keep our fingers crossed. It's important that we know that we elected you into office. We are the ones with the power, not you with the power. But I think we are not educated enough to know our powers are the masses, the influence we have on all these public officers, and that is why we begin to reap things like this. But we'll still keep our fingers crossed and see that what the outcome of this plenary will be at the end of the day.
Yes, still on the New Telegraph, ASU, Labour threatens to join strike over federal government ineptitude, urges education, Labour ministers to resign, and Dan's shelf plans protest as Senate others intervene. And on IPPIS, NASU, Sasanu present own payment system to the federal government. On 2023, INEC parties disagree on review of election timeline. The rider says we've lost 2 weeks to Easter and Salah break. This is from IPAC. An extension will put unnecessary pressure on parties. This is coming from the commission. Ipman warns of impending fuel scarcity over 500 billion naira debt. As aviation, the fuel scarcity looms, flights no longer on schedule. This is from Dana Air, and passengers are lamenting. Here downside, we have a study which links wildfire to risks of cancer. We have few picture stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. Do well to visit to look out for stories that interest you.
Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Bank loans to government rise to 16.32 trillion naira, says the CBN. You can look that story up on page 26 of the Punch newspaper. And on refineries probe, reps kick as Kyari keeps mum on oil swap deal. Senate amends Electoral Act, reps reconvene today. And federal government have asked to resume talks Monday. Students continue protests. Detail of that story can be found on page 7. Telcos propose tax review, others to avert the 40% tariff hike. Nigeria and 10 ECOWAS countries in debt distress. This is a report. You can look that report up on page 20. And the big story, Jonathan's backers seek consensus. Southern APC aspirant disagree. The rider following that story. 28 presidential aspirant obtain form as sale ends. Another contestant join race. Jonathan candidacy tough to sell. This is coming from Governor Umahi. Ekiti Eswaga won APC. And we have Jonathan is welcome. He can contest on the APC platform. This is coming from Castina and Bayelsa chairman. And still on 2023, INEC insists on June 3rd as 18 parties demand primaries deadline extension. And we have Nigerian paper mill collapse. Imports hit 297 billion naira in 6 months. SAN threatening 1,000 cases against Emefiele. CMPP demands sacking. Lagos begin crackdown on deficit structure, demolishes 3-story building. Obasanjo Adebayo support Southeast presidency, says Ohanizi. You can look that story up on page 7. And businesswoman accuses Olympia of football trial fraud. Lawyer denies the claim. And Akiro Dodo plans 350 additional men operational vehicles for Amoteku. We can really applaud Governor Akiro Dodo. He has been doing all he can to make sure that the state policing in his state is tight. And I think this is a lead that other governors of other states should take, because I think our policemen and soldiers are quite short. They can't be everywhere at the same time. But when we look into see how we can use the security money that has been sent to every state to see how you'll be able to, restate your own state in your own level. Make sure that it's safe, because before you place the call to the army or the governor should also take. We have few picture stories here. You can do well to get the Punch newspaper and read any of the story that is of interest to you.
Thank you, Sally. On Vanguard newspaper, army denies pampering repentant terrorist. And Bishop Kuka is saying on 2023, there will be no credible election unless. And if you really want to know what the bishop is saying about the 2023 election and how it can be free and fair, the story is found in Vanguard page 8. On party primaries, Senate amend Electoral Act to allow President, National Assembly members, governors, and others to vote. Petrol marketers hint on impending crisis in fuel supply. The big story on 2023 presidency, Jonathan makes U-turn on APC ticket. The rider says ex-president supporters buckle and move to complete nomination form before deadline. Jonathan meets with Fulani community for 2 hours, consider demand to run. APC begins aspirants. Mixed reaction greets Jonathan defection to APC, and we can't stop Jonathan. So APC may find it difficult to campaign with Jonathan as its candidate. This is from Dave Umahi. And defection of ex-president Jonathan to APC is unfortunate. This is from the Middle Belt Forum. Insinuation of Jonathan's defection in sources from Obasanjo and Fale. And primaries, APC, PDP. 16 others demand 37-day extension of INEC's June 3rd deadline. And court nullifies ACF's Committee on Sales and Disposal of Recovered Assets. The picture story here, we have the royal visit by Governor Inuwa Yaya of Gombe State. And the same vein, Tinubu meets Governor Yaya and the APC national leader and the presidential aspirant Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and Gombe State Governor Inuwa Yaya during the Asiwaju visit to the state to meet the APC delegates. So yesterday we knew that the vice president visited Gombe State, and even the presidential aspirant as Bola Tinubu also visited Gombe State just to kick and also and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
Let's take a look at that Jezra midweek newspaper. And on E-Naira, CBN targets 85% financial inclusion on payment system. You can look that story up on page 23 of that Jezra newspaper. More troubles in aviation sector as workers down tool. And on presidency, which is a big story, head or tail for Nigeria like us. Should others vote for us in 2023? I think this is a question, and you want to know the answer to that, you can look that story up on the Jezra newspaper on page 8. And court finds Akwa Ibom CP 2 cups over fraudulent land deal. Court nullifies sale disposal of recovered asset by the AGF. And what's fuel scarcity ahead? In essence, we're supposed to prepare our mind for the worst. And this is a question viewers will be asking. Are we trying to say Nigeria is now a failed state? There we don't even understand. Transport sector is only God knows how we can even give testimony about the lots of potholes that is as good as a well that when you're using the Nigerian route. The railway that people have decided to use is already open to terrorists. Now what are we going to see? What is the government going to say? And they are going to amend the Electoral Act. They are planning to even influence INEC to extend the timeline for them to run for primaries because they still have 1 or 2 things to do. And I remember part of the rules that was set in the Electoral Act is to allow INEC to work without influence from any external body. And we're having you accountable. The day you told us that you promise, you pledge an oath to whatever you hold dearly, to whether you're a Christian or a Muslim, and you're yet to hold up to those responsibilities, then I think it's high time the masses call you back if you are not ready to do what is expected of you. Most of those people who failed us are still planning to hold another office, come another 4 years or 8 years. So we need to be educated on what is happening around us and rise up to that responsibility to do the right thing. Because it's spreading. It started from Abuja, Kano, Lagos, now Sokoto. Before you realize it, the whole 36 state will still go back to the batters to our fuel. Even the other things that will take out of the crude oil, we can still use some of those like that. Still on Al Jazeera newspaper, party congresses primaries. Senate amends Electoral Act sensation, says Osun governor. We actually hope that the money will actually go to the victims. We have few picture stories here where the cross at the Air Force Girls Comprehensive School, Abuja. We also have another picture story down here, so you can do well to get that Jezra news
on around maintenance to life, because if our refineries are working properly, we won't have issues of all this IPMAN and this hike in transportation fare and even the scarcity of petroleum. So our refineries need to be brought to life and activities should take place there, because if it's working, functioning well, it will boost our GDP and even help in job creation. The big story ahead, others battle for delegates. Aids collecting allowances from government, and the government has literally fallen apart. This is coming from Kari. Uneasy meant unrealistic. This is coming from the Senate President. And court nullified federal government sales of recovered assets. Train attack 1 week after Buhari's directives. Victims' family yet.
Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. Why refineries are moribund. This is by NNPC, and it's a term poils the primaries participants. Navy arrests 117 suspected oil thieves, 6 vessels. More protests over ASU strike extension. You can look that on page 2 and page 6 of the Nation newspaper. 4 Christland see over Jonathan, Emefiele and additional. With mom. Submission of forms closes, and we have the aspirants who have obtained the forms. Some of them here. We have Ashu and Bolok, Dr. Tunde Bakari, and many others. You can look that story. Mary's date sacrosanct. Dollar scarcity pushes more transactions to parallel market, and we have Chidima's tap Ataga several times says here to do well to get the Nation newspaper and carry detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Voice of Liberty, Kaduna 2023, Bashir Jamo, most qualified candidate for governor. This is coming from a senator. And Senate Electoral Act extension of primaries timeline. AP's The Big Story says worst fuel scarcity is coming. Petroleum marketers alert Nigerians. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has asked Nigerians to prepare for the worst fuel crisis. The IPMAN chairman, Kano State Chapter, Bashir Danmala, made the request while addressing the news conference in Kano State on Monday. Insurgency may not last beyond May 2023, says the military. And Kaduna PDP celebrates as El Rufai endorses Uba Sani and he boasts of victory. Buhari's tenure should be ex-victims countdown 44 days in captivity. Sele, what you can't do in 8 years, even if it's extended by 6 months, you can't do it. Let's just face the reality and look for who is credible. Main thing you had in mind before assuming, because in your manifesto, the main thing the president was saying is on how to tackle insecurity. And now we can see insecurity has given birth to so many things in our country. So many lives have been lost as a result to fight this insecurity. We've seen the train attack, 44 days now, victims are there, and there's no negotiation between the families. And even the government, families had to come out and say they want to speak with the terrorists to negotiate. The government is saying you shouldn't pay ransom to terrorists, but you have your loved ones here. Definitely you have to pay ransom for your loved ones to be released, because you can imagine the depression, imagine what those people are going through, knowing where your loved one is and you don't even know what the person is going through, and the federal government is saying you should not do anything, and they're not negotiating, they're not even looking out for ways they can bring out these people. Families have resulted in saying they're paying ransom, a huge amount of money just for the rescue of their loved ones, and our government, who are supposed to look into, they'll be given 6 more months to fight insecurity, when the military are saying the insecurity will be fought before May 2023. Another person, we should try another person, and even the way of one person. Let's try other ways and see how we can fight this issue of insecurity and other ways we can forge ahead as a country.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Well, before we look into other papers we have for you this morning, we'd like to take a time out where we will open the phone line so that you can call us. Remember, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. You can drop your comments, and when we're back from the break, I will read your comment if there's any, and also to receive your calls. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is from the Dailies on Equa Television Africa. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham, and Wolabi Tosin have been doing this alongside me. Move to the next paper, which is the Daily Sun newspaper. And on 2023, Obasanjo, Adibajo, others endorsed Southeast for presidency. And the writer following that story, Ohanizi lobby group pushes harder. Detail can be found on page 8. Court notifies AGF sale displays. OK's president and governors and others to vote in the Electoral Act amendment. Reps hold emergency session today on same amendment. So our fingers are crossed concerning those. Sex tape, Lagos police arrange 4 Christland school teachers. Detail of that can be found on page 4. And we have NAS issue federal government and ASU 9-day ultimatum to open public varsities, threatening to shut down Niger Bridge, Enugu, Imo, and Anambra airports. You can look that up on page 27. Court bars PDP INEC from using result of aborted ACOC delegate list in Imo, with the rider Akwa Ibom APC crisis refusing betrayal of Southeast. This is from Umahi. And Abia Guba, ex-AG, urges IU to intervene in the unfolding crisis, says party faces gloomy future in states. And we have on basic education, Kadu bills get Senate note, skills first reading. Can look that story up on page 3. And we have the picture story here where we have the Vice President Yemi Zubanjo received by Governor Inuaya of Gombe State with some Fulani youngsters in Gombe yesterday. And that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On Daily Independent, the big story on APC, PDP, others ask INEC to adjust 2023 election timetable. Senate amends Electoral Act, makes elected officials party delegates. Details can be found in page 7. And on 2023 presidency, if Jonathan runs, it will be wonder of the century. This is from Dave Umahi. PDP decides fate of presidential aspirants today. And 35,000 people killed in Northeast in a decade. This is a report, with 2.5 million people displaced. It's the turn of Southeast for the 2023 presidency, coming from Obasanjo and Adebanjo. Nigeria to end 663 billion naira annual medical tourism. And this is from the federal government. Senate will bring back federal government and ASU to negotiation table. The Senate president is saying this, urges students to avoid confrontation. Insecurity in Southeast not targeted at headers. This is from Mieti Allah. And the last story here on the Daily Independent newspaper, COE ASU threatens strike after expiration of 21-day ultimatum. Full details is in page 6, and we have 2 picture stories on the front page. Do well to visit the Daily Independent to look out for stories that interest you.
And on this day newspaper, Kiare, why Nigerians refineries are not working, says rehabilitation on the way. With the rider assures 2.8 billion liters of petrol available, sufficient for 48 days. You can look that story up on page 10. JP Morgan cuts Nigeria from overweight over country fiscal woes. Presidency to Clark Babalola, no tenure elongation for Buhari. And on party primaries, Senate amends Electoral Act yet again to allow president, governors, others to vote. House to do same today. But will Buhari sign? This is a question. So you can look up for that and keep your fingers crossed for whatever the outcome of that meeting will be today. And the big story here says APC ticket, Jonathan gives conditions. Sale of forms extended to May 12th. And that's tomorrow, with the rider, former president, joining our party. Running for office will be one of the wonders of the century, says Dave Umahi. And the 100 million naira forms, presidential aspirant defeats alleged party has commercialized the primary process. The high cost of the APC-PDP presidential form worries Kuka, and also warn Nigerians on weekly pushing for bureaucracy. And we have the picture story here. The second term journey begins, where we can see the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, during his submission of the All Progressive Congress governorship nomination form yesterday in Abuja. And also we have, will Moghalu be second term lucky? Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed to know if he will be lucky. And the last story I'll be taking here, court gives PDP 4 days to respond to suit against the primary. You can look that story up on page 44. On the Guardian newspaper, TUC threatens action over ASU strike as COED workers issues 21-day ultimatum. 18 political parties seeks extension of deadline for primaries. INEC rejects plea, insists on June 3rd. Federal government gives occupants 30 days to vacate Lagos bridges. On STEC scandal, police arraign 4 Chrisland school teachers. While on Bamishe's death, BRT operation manager narrates how Omini Koron ran away. And political parties on obscene money politics. PDP running a distant third in Ekiti governorship poll, says a survey. While Afenifere condemns Emefiele's involvement in politics, requests for restraining orders. Pro-Silva Arewa Group urges Northern presidential aspirant to step down. Cross River PDP aspirant rejects consensus. The big story on 2023, PDP may dump zoning as NEC meets over autumn's report.
The rider says concern mount over appointment of convention planning committee. Court orders speedy hearing of suit challenging PDP primaries. And Umahi is saying if Jonathan joins APC, it will be one of the wonders of the century. Tenure extension, I will hand over May 29 next year. Buhari replies, Clark. And Cole debunk Wike's $50 million fraud allegation. Dagogo faces fresh charges to take plea May 16. And two-picture story, that's for Babajide Sanwo-Olu, like for his coming back his second term in Lagos State, and also we can see the naval officers doing their work on how they can get those people who are moving drugs, because we need to fight against the drug shipment of drugs, and we see that the naval officers are doing their work in getting all those people who ship drugs and even illegal things from one place to the other. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
And on Nigerian Tribune, and on 2023, while Lawan is in the race, ripples in PDP over his ambition. Senate to intervene in ASU strike. NAS begin mass protest, vows to ground Nigerians' economy and political activities. And I'll say that they need to take this gradually, because at the end of the day, if anyone gets injured, it's the parents that will be left with it. So we shouldn't do anything that will affect the economy while we are still protesting and want our voices to be heard concerning ASU. We also have to be careful not to destroy any property that will affect the economy of the country presently.
And since, yesterday the government said they are going to wage war against any protesters, because students have threatened to shut down the National Assembly and even the airports and even major roads that are linking from one place to the other. And the federal government have promised to wage war against these people. So when you see the federal government threatening the students, you know that something bad might come up, because we saw how the hashtag #EndSARS, how it ended. A peaceful protest ended into a bloody protest. So students need to be careful, and also security operatives, they need to go out protest. It should be on a peaceful ground. There should be no shooting of sword. There should be no fighting. There should be no throwing of like dangerous things among themselves. Just come out and protest. It should be on a peaceful ground. It's not bad to protest, but it should be a peaceful protest, because people need to air their views. These students have tried. They've stayed at home for this long and they are going through a whole lot. So they need to air their voice to the government on looking out for ways they can negotiate and bring down the strike, and let ASU and the federal government resolve the ongoing problem so that they can go back to school. I keep on saying, when two elephants are fighting, the grass are the ones that are suffering and the students are the grasses. They are really suffering. Something needs to be done about it so that students can go back to school. And thank God the Senate President said they are going to go on a negotiation table. We just hope that it will start very fast so that they can negotiate on this issue, and before this 3 months, students can go back to school and round up whatever they have to round up.
Of course, still same. And on the big story, Senate amends Electoral Act, rider following that story to allow president others vote at party congresses and primaries. Reps to hold emergency plenary today. 32 civil society organizations insist on resignation of political office holders. Detail of that can be found on page 5. We have a picture story here, hashtag #EndASU strike, and this is coming from the Great Ife Students Union. And we actually hope that something will be done soon. INEC says no as 18 political parties seek extension of deadline for primaries. The 100 million naira form, APC diverting public funds, PDP alleges, with the rider wants movement of money in MDA's monitor. Jonathan, not our member, APC Bayelsa chairman says. And first casting may linger unless the federal government pays marketers bridging claims. This is coming from Ipman. And 4 teachers have been arranged over the Christland School Dubai sex saga. Buhari won't extend his tenure. This is coming from the presidency. Says Efe Babalola calls for interim government ignores democratic rights. Southern governors won't shelve position on power shift. This is coming from the governor of Lagos, Sanwo-Olu. You can look that story up on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune, and that's all from the Nigerian Tribune.
And on Times Malta, which is an international paper, we have "Do not let your island be abused." Zelensky tells MPs. Ukraine president addresses Malta's parliament on the ongoing war concerning Ukraine and Russia. We can see that the Ukraine president is addressing Malta parliament on how they can resolve this issue and move ahead, forge ahead, because after this war, people need to forge ahead. A whole lot of life have been lost, but they have to sheath their sword and look out for ways they can grow, because if a country needs to grow and thrive, they don't need to depend on the ongoing problem they are going to. They don't need to dwell on this problem for long. Look for how they can resolve this war and move ahead. And we can see the president looking out for other ways that they can move ahead as a country. And that's all on Times Malta.
Well, let's look at yet another international newspaper, which is the Daily Express. A glance at his mother's crown and then child serve Queen and country as Her Majesty watches on TV at Windsor. And we have the Prime Minister pledges help, but once we can't spend way out of cost of living crisis. And we have Boris promises firepower to help hard-hit families. And Maurice Johnson vows to use the fiscal firepower from economy to help thousands of households fight the cost of living crisis. And I think this is the right step in the right direction coming from the Prime Minister. The fact that that the cost of living is actually getting very high. And see what can he do using his own position to liberate those who are suffering from hunger crisis and that. And I think this is a lead we should also take from other countries, looking at how they can help other people that are going through, because presently we already have the fact that there's food crisis in the nation as a result of the fight going on in Ukraine and in Russia. And I think even apart from the crisis, we're having our own internal crisis here that's affecting food. So I hope that we'll also take a lead from seeing all the things that are happening in international countries and then bring them back into our own country. And that's all on the Daily Express newspaper.
And the Guardian newspaper here, Putin could go nuclear if he fears defeat. This is coming from the United States. And on Musk, it will be Trump return to Twitter. Musk is saying, "I'll let Trump return to Twitter. Ban on former US president was a mistake," and by left-biased firm, says Tesla billionaire. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
And something for our sport lovers, which is coming from the Sporting Sun newspaper. And we have Liverpool piles pressure on Man City. Oshime Agalo out of Super Eagles friend lines, with the rider following that Ozuho Apeye Adileho and dropped 8 home-based players make list. As Yusuf invites Musa, Simon and 28 others. You can look that sport news up on page 6. And we have Arsenal closing in on Gabriel Jesus deal. We have Al Hassan Yusuf gets first Super Eagles call-up. This is really a great one too. We have yet another beautiful, stories here lined up here, where we have the Super Eagles post to grab semi-final ticket against Atilos. Detail of that can be found on page 6. And that's all on the Sporting Sun newspaper. And I think this is where we'll call it a wrap on the program from the Dailies. It's been a pleasure having us here every morning, and also we really need to express our gratitude to our supporters who make sure we're always on air, and also to the ECHO executive for giving us a platform like this where we tend to look at issues that concerns us as individuals and also as a nation. Until we come your way again tomorrow, until we come your way again tomorrow, stay tuned for other programs that we have for you. Have a blessed day ahead.